All right, so you can clear a chakra and still recreate the same pattern. All right, so this means that you can meditate, receive some energy healing like Reiki, practice your affirmations, listen to your frequencies, and still leave a session feeling lighter, but only to find yourself back into the same old patterns, right? So maybe silencing your truth or overgiving in relationships, doubting your intuition, or slipping back into the same fear-based patterns just a few days later. I know it seems frustrating. And if this has happened to you, it does not mean that you failed. And it also doesn't mean necessarily that the energy work failed as well. Okay. It may mean that your chakras weren't just blocked. It was following an old instruction or program. Okay. And that distinction is what changes everything. All right. And here's the thing about it. If you keep treating an energetic program as though it is only a temporary blockage, you may repeatedly clear and balance the energy that's being created by the pattern without ever reaching the instruction or the program that keeps recreating it. Okay. So in this video, I'm going to explain the difference between chakra blocks and chakra programming and reveal 3 signs that an old energetic instruction or program may be still active, and walk you through a very simple process that you can use to begin identifying the instruction and the program beneath one of your reoccurring patterns. Okay. And we're also going to go beyond the traditional 7 chakra model to explore the role of the 8th, 9th, and 10th chakras. And later, I'm going to share a story of one of my clients who believed that her primary issue was in her throat chakra until deeper work revealed that the real program was being held somewhere completely different. Okay. And the thing about it is why I love stories is her story may help you recognize something important about your own energy. Okay. So if you're new to my channel, I just want to quickly introduce myself. Hi, my name's Alchemy Earth. I'm an advanced practitioner of energy medicine, multidimensional healer. I've been doing this work for close to 20 years now. I've helped over 10,000 of my students inside my Ascension Academy. And then also, just very proud to say that I've trained with world-renowned healers. One of my healing teachers, Master Zoe, it was known as the Jewel of China. And I'm just here to share my wisdom with you. So one thing about chakras. So we often talk about chakras as if they are like these 7 separate containers, okay? The root chakra holds one type of energy, right? Sacral holds another, heart holds love, the throat holds expression. So when one becomes blocked, we clear it, we balance it, we move on. That's kind of how most people are taught in that framework, if you will. So that model can be very helpful. But I would say that there's more to the picture. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that in my years of practice, there's definitely more to the picture. Okay. Your chakras are not isolated containers. They are a part of an intelligent, interconnected energetic system, just like your actual body. They receive, they organize, and transmit information. That's basically what energy is, okay? And they interact with your emotions, your beliefs, memories, relationships, environment, spiritual connection, and the protective strategies that you've developed throughout your life. So for example, you can maybe imagine that you learned early in life that expressing your needs created conflict, okay? Perhaps you were dismissed or criticized or punished or made to feel selfish when you spoke honestly, all right? Your conscious mind may now understand that you deserve to have a voice. You may have done years of work around, boundaries and self-expression, but there's another part of your system that still may be following the same instructions, okay? And that instruction can sound something like, oh, it's safer to stay quiet, okay? That instruction may affect, for instance, the throat chakra, but it can also involve the root chakra because the pattern is connected with safety, if that makes sense. It may involve the solar plexus or the solar plexus chakra because the patterns affect confidence and personal authority, okay? It may involve the heart because you learn to preserve connection by abandoning your truth. And this is why focusing exclusively on the chakra where you feel the symptom does not always create a lasting shift, okay? The chakra it's so complex. There's actually a whole chakra anatomy and where programs and things are held. But in many cases, it may basically be trying to protect you based on the information it received during an earlier experience. Okay. What we call a block may have once been basically an intelligent adaptation. Okay. Now, what I'm going to say is this. The problem is that the adaptation may still be running long after the original danger has passed. Okay. So your life has changed, but the program and the instructions have not. Hope that makes sense. Okay. And I'll kind of make this a little more clear. Let's actually make a very, very important distinction here. Okay. So chakra clearing, balancing basically helps you release accumulated, stagnant, or non-beneficial energy from the system. Okay. Static is kind of like what I like to refer to it as. And it can create relief. It can create openness, clarity. It can also create just that renewed, energetic movement, which is really, really helpful. Deprogramming addresses the deeper instruction that may be generating or attracting the same energetic pattern. Okay. So imagine a room with an alarm that goes off every afternoon, right? You can silence the alarm and the room becomes really peaceful, right? But if the alarm is still programmed to sound at the same time tomorrow, the noise will return. Does that make sense? So clearing basically quiets the alarm, okay? Deprogramming investigates why it was set, whether it is still needed, and whether the instruction can now be changed, okay? Both are very valuable, but they are not the same process, if that makes sense. Okay. And this may explain why you can feel an immediate shift during energy work and still notice the same pattern returning later. Okay. So the clearing was real. The relief was real, but the deeper instruction and programming may still be operating beneath the surface. Okay. And there's a certain place in the chakra where programs are held. Okay. And so this is, and it's not a reason to become discouraged, I'll say that, okay? But it is an invitation to become more precise, right? So instead of asking only, which chakra is blocked, and this is what I get a lot, in my practice, a question that is better than that question is, what is this chakra trying to accomplish for me? Okay? What does my system believe would happen if this pattern changed, right? What instruction might my energy still be following? What program? Okay. And these are the type of questions, or those questions can lead you beneath the symptom. All right. Because most people are approaching their healing just from the level of symptom. Okay. So here's 3 signs that you may be still dealing with more than a temporary energetic block, or what we call congestion. Okay. So maybe you're feeling confident until you are around a certain kind of authority figure or a certain situation. Okay. Maybe you feel open to love until someone becomes, emotionally available, or maybe you're clear about, your boundaries until you sense that another person is disappointed. Okay. Maybe you trust your intuition until it asks you to make a decision that would make you more visible. Okay. So here's the thing. When the pattern repeatedly activates around the same kind of situation, your system may be following a conditional instruction. For example, I can be powerful as long as no one feels threatened, right? Or I can receive love as long as I do not become dependent. Or, I can speak honestly as long as there's no, risk of rejection. And again, these are all examples. I can be visible as long as no one criticizes me. Right? So the pattern is not random. It has a condition, if that makes sense. And so your first practical step to identify that condition is really simple. Okay. So you're going to finish this sentence. I feel free to be myself until, and I want you to finish that sentence. Okay. Pause this if you need to. And here's the thing. Whatever follows the word until may reveal the trigger that's connected with the deeper instruction or the deeper programming. Okay. Sign number 2. So you understand the pattern intellectually, but your response doesn't change. Okay. So you know that you're worthy, but you still maybe, in your business or, in your position of leadership, you're asking for less, you undercharge, okay? Maybe you're allowed to say no, but your body kind of tightens when you try, or you feel this like feeling coming up, or maybe the relationship is really draining you, but you feel responsible for the other person's emotions, so you're acting out of guilt. Okay, maybe that you're ready for greater visibility, right? If you're a leader, but you keep finding one more reason to just wait, or I guess I got to learn this one more thing. I don't know enough. So here's the thing, knowledge is important, but information alone does not always change a pattern that has become embedded in your emotional and energetic responses. Okay, so your mind may know one truth while your system is still organized around another. Does that make sense? And that does not mean that you're weak, okay, or resistant. It may mean that the pattern exists as a layer that cannot be reached through logic alone. Okay. Sign number 3, protection begins to sound like intuition. All right. Now this one, I'm going to say this one requires some very, very deep discernment. Sometimes a protective pattern will say, something just feels off. Okay. Or this isn't the right time. That's a very common one. I just need one more sign. Okay. We've all been there, right? Or I should wait until, I feel completely ready. Let me tell you something. Those messages may be intuitive, but they can also come from a part of the system that's trying to prevent uncertainty, visibility, vulnerability, or change. So one helpful distinction is that intuition often feels very clear. It feels very grounded, even when its message is challenging you. Okay. Protection tends to feel very urgent, repetitive, contracted, or just filled with, these imagined consequences. All right. Now, this is not an absolute rule, and you should never force yourself to override a genuine warning. All right. But instead, I'm just inviting you to become curious. Okay. And maybe you start to ask these questions, like, asking, does this guidance feel clear, or does it feel afraid? Or is this helping me honor a truth or avoid an unfamiliar experience? Okay. Or, if I knew I was safe to take one small step, would the answer feel different? Okay. Now, you do not have to make the full decision immediately. Sometimes the most revealing thing that you can do is to take one small reversible step and notice how your system responds. Okay. I want to look at real quick how an instruction can move through multiple chakras. Okay, so let's do this. Imagine the instruction is this. All right. I must earn love by, being useful. Okay. So the root chakra may connect usefulness with safety and belonging. All right. The sacral chakra may suppress personal desires to accommodate other people. And then you've got the solar plexus chakra that may measure worth through productivity. Okay. Heart chakra may confuse love with sacrifice. Throat chakra may struggle to express needs. Okay. Third eye chakra may perceive every situation through the question, what does this person need from me? Okay. Crown chakra may turn self-abandonment into, like some sort of spiritual virtue. All right. So this is the one reason the loudest chakra in the room, right, is not always the source of the pattern. There's always going to be that very obvious kind of go-to chakra, but there's deeper messages here. Okay. So the throat, for instance, may feel blocked because, you're not speaking up or whatever the case may be. Maybe you're not listening, but the original instruction may be connected with safety in the root or belonging in the heart. Okay. The solar plexus may feel depleted because you lack confidence, right? But the deeper pattern may be in the sacral chakra, where your desires were repeatedly dismissed or shamed. All right. So just like your body, when something's off or out of balance, your energy system compensates. it compensates. So one chakra may overwork because another does not feel safe enough to remain open. Okay. And this is why isolated chakra work can sometimes miss the larger architecture. It's like tuning one instrument without listening to the entire orchestra. Okay. And so most people are familiar with the 7 primary chakras, but many energetic traditions also work with the transpersonal, or what we call higher chakras, outer body chakras. Okay. Now there's no one single universal numbering system, especially when we're talking about the non-primary. And I'm not going to say one's right over another. Okay. But I just want to be very clear that I'm sharing the framework that I use within my own work. And that's really all there is. Take it with a grain of salt. Okay. So in my framework, basically the 8th chakra is associated with karmic memory and patterns that may extend beyond the identity you formed in this lifetime. Okay. And this can include ancestral influences, unresolved energetic agreements, inherited patterns and experiences that are understood through what we call a past life or a multidimensional lens, timelines. Okay. 9th chakra is associated with the soul blueprint. It is basically the center through which we work with higher frequency information and light code activation. Okay. And I'm going to explain what I mean by light codes in just a moment, because that phrase is often used, I think, without context. And then we've got the 10th chakra that expands the work into a higher level of spiritual intelligence. It's also connected directly to Gaia, deep history, your lineage, things like that. Okay. And yeah, it's just as important. Actually, when we're working on an elemental level, this is the chakra that's going to basically govern that. Okay. Even beyond the 5 elements, into, cosmic elements. So why does this matter? Okay. And it actually is very, very important when it comes to balance within the physical body as well. So why does this all matter is the question, because sometimes a pattern does not feel completely personal, right? You may find yourself carrying fear, guilt, responsibility, or even grief that feels older or larger than your present circumstances. Okay. You may recognize a pattern that has moved through multiple generations of your family, or you may even sense like a deep internal conflict between the identity you were conditioned to become and the life that your soul is asking you to create. Okay. So working with the higher chakras basically gives us a framework for exploring those experiences without reducing everything to a single event or emotion. Okay. And it allows us to ask not only, what happened to me, which that question is very disempowering, but more so, what have I inherited? Okay. You'll be surprised. What am I still carrying? Right? What is complete? What is my soul now ready to express? Okay. And so I want to turn this into something very practical for you. All right. Because it's one thing to just hear it all, but I want you to do this exercise real quick if you've got time. And I'm going to put some instructions also in the chat. Okay. So you're going to choose one pattern that has repeated in your life. And for this, if this is your first time kind of working on this level, do not choose the most overwhelming experience that you've ever had. Okay. Start with something manageable and also start with something very specific. Maybe you over-explain your decisions, or maybe you procrastinate when, it's time to share your work. Maybe you say yes when you really want to say no. Okay. Maybe you repeatedly choose emotionally unavailable partners. Maybe you have difficulty receiving help. Okay. So pick something. These are just examples. I want you to now take one slow breath in through your nose after you've identified that. Maybe you got to pause this video. Okay. You're going to take a deep breath in through the nose, and then on the exhale, I want you to allow that exhale to be slower and just a little longer than the exhale by just a couple of seconds. Okay. Maybe you do this a couple times, depending on how wired up your nervous system is. We extend that exhale because it helps bring the nervous system back into a non-threatened state so that messages can come through a little clearer. Okay. Here's the thing. You're not trying to force yourself into a different state. You are simply creating enough space to observe the pattern. That's what we want to do. Okay. Be an observer. And then you're going to work through these 5 questions. I'll post them in the chat below the video. Okay. Or even in the description. And you're going to describe the pattern without judging yourself. Okay. So question 1 is what happens? So describe the pattern without judging yourself. So instead of saying, oh, I always sabotage everything, okay, you're going to say, when I'm about to share something important, I delay publishing it. Okay, do you see the difference between my language? So specific language creates clarity. When there's shame in your statement, it will create fog. Okay, so question 1 is what happened? Be very specific with how you word it. Okay, and then question 2 is when does it happen? So you're going to identify the trigger. When someone becomes emotionally close, this is an example I'm using, by the way. So when someone becomes emotionally close to me, finish that sentence. Okay. So identify that trigger. When I'm asked to name my how much I charge for my services, or how much, when I'm trying to, talk about that raise or promotion, when another person is disappointed, finish that sentence. Okay. Or when I'm about to be seen by more people, what comes next? Okay. Or when I receive an opportunity I deeply want, what happens next? Okay. So I'm just giving you examples here. You're going to work with what you chose. Okay. So when does it happen? Does it happen when someone becomes emotionally close? Does it happen when you're, when another person is disappointed, or when you receive an opportunity? Okay. And then question 3, where do I feel the response? You have to be able to tune in and notice the first area of contraction, of heaviness, of numbness, of heat or tension, or whatever it is you're feeling. Okay. Is it in the pelvis? Is it in the stomach? Is it in the chest? Is it in the throat, the forehead, or somewhere else? A combination of places. Okay. Do not immediately decide which chakra is responsible. You're just simply going to notice where your body allows you to feel the response. Okay. And then question 4, you're going to ask yourself is, what does this response believe it is preventing? Now, this is one of the most important questions. Okay. What is your nervous system trying to protect you from? What is your system trying to protect you from? Is it rejection? Is it conflict? Is it failure? Is it success? Maybe it's responsibility. Maybe it's disappointment, being misunderstood, losing connection, becoming more visible. Maybe for you, that's it, right? Becoming more visible than the people, more visible than the people around you. The list goes on. Okay. The answer may surprise you. Question 5, what is the old instruction? What is the old program? Okay. And you're going to find out by completing the sentence. To remain safe, loved, accepted, or in control, I must what? To remain safe, I must stay quiet. To remain loved, I must be useful. To remain accepted, I must not outgrow the people around me. Right? To remain in control, I don't have to need anyone. Okay, so again, these are examples, but once you identify the instruction or the program, here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to attack mode, okay? You have to acknowledge why it formed. That's where the healing begins. And for you, you might say, I understand why part of me learned this, right? Or, this program, this instruction once attempted to protect me. Or I don't need to shame the version of me who created this strategy. Okay. And then I want you to ask, what is one new instruction or program I am ready to practice? This does not need to be a grand statement that your body immediately rejects. Okay. I want you to choose something believable to you. Okay. So instead of, I'm completely fearless, right? When you're full of fear, maybe you can try, well, it's safe to take one honest step, one aligned step. Okay. Or instead of, everyone supports my success, maybe you can try, I can remain connected to myself when someone does not understand me. Right. Or instead of, I trust everyone. Maybe you just, you've had your trust or you've been betrayed a lot. You could say, I can open gradually while honoring my discernment. Right. So you're going to work on that level, and then you're going to choose one small action that allows your system to experience the new instruction, okay, the new program. Send the email, set the boundary in a very kind way, receive the compliment without minimizing yourself or deflecting. Share your work before it feels perfect, okay? Ask for help with one specific thing. Energetic change becomes more stable when your inner work is supported by a new lived experience. And that is the thing that I think that most of us need to understand about energy work. Energy work is not just about receiving the Reiki, right? It is literally about also the inner work and the consciousness, okay? And how you're living those experiences. And I want to share just a quick story based on a pattern that, I've seen in a lot of the clients that I've worked with. So one of my clients was, super spiritual, I would say ultra spiritual, right? And she had already done years of her inner work. She's meditated, journaled, she did shadow work, she understood her childhood patterns, she regularly worked with her chakras, things like that, right? But whenever it was time to become more visible in her work, she froze, okay? And she could speak very confidently in private conversations, right? She could support other people with amazing clarity. But when she prepared to basically publish her own ideas and promote her offer or, speak in front of a larger audience, she would just get this tightening in her throat. Okay. And so she assumed, she's like, well, it's obviously a throat chakra block, right? So she focused on the throat, which many people would. So she used affirmations. She practiced speaking her truth. She visualized the blue light. These practices did give her temporary relief. They will, okay? But the pattern kept returning, all right? And so what she eventually recognized was that her throat was not the origin of the pattern. And this is when we worked together, okay? So her throat was actually responding to an instruction connected with safety, all right? So basically her program was like, oh, if I'm fully seen, I will lose belonging, okay? So early in her life, visibility basically had brought a lot of criticism her way and also disconnection. And her system had learned that she could be gifted or visible, but not both visible and safe. So that was the program. So the throat was where she felt the restriction, but the deeper pattern involved also the root chakra's relationship with safety and also the heart chakra's relationship with belonging and the higher level conflict between her conditioned identity and the expression her soul was asking her to embody, okay? And so the breakthrough was not simply, I need to speak more. She had been trying to do that for years, okay? The deeper shift began when she recognized my silence is not proof that I have nothing to say, right? It is a strategy that once helped me preserve connection, all right? And let me tell you something, that realization allowed her to stop fighting herself. And she began practicing a new instruction. I can be visible without abandoning myself. Okay. And at first, it did not look dramatic, right? But she published one message without rewriting it 10 times, right? She was a writer, and she allowed someone to disagree without immediately explaining herself. Okay. She also noticed the urge to become smaller and paused before, she just simply acquiesced to that. Okay. And over time, the payoff was not simply that she spoke more. She felt less divided when she spoke. All right. She had reclaimed her energy that was fragmented, and her voice no longer had to fight against the part of her that believed visibility was dangerous. Okay. And that is what deeper chakra work can offer. Not a performance of confidence, right? We're talking literally greater coherence between the truth you consciously know and the instruction your energetic system is willing to follow. Okay. So earlier I mentioned light code activation through the ninth chakra. So in this work, basically light codes are understood as high frequency information connected with your soul blueprint. Okay. So no, it does not mean that something foreign is being, installed into you, or that, you suddenly become a different person. It's just essentially the process of opening to the qualities, wisdom, and spiritual gifts and frequency that already belong to the deeper architecture of your soul. Okay. So think about a seed, right? The seed already contains the intelligence required to become what that plant is supposed to, or what it's designed to become, right? So that intelligence is not created by the soil or the sunlight, okay? But it's the proper conditions, right? The proper conditions allow it to express itself, if that makes sense. So in a similar way, light code work is intended to create basically greater access to the higher information already held within your soul blueprint. Okay. And this is why activation ideally follows clearing and deprogramming. Okay. Because if the system is still organized around an instruction that, or an instruction or pattern, like, oh, visibility is dangerous, right? Or something like that, or whatever, more energy alone may actually intensify the conflict. Okay. We're adding fuel to the fire. So first we create space, then we address the old instruction or program, and then finally we invite the higher soul signal to become more available, okay? And the purpose is not to escape your humanity. It is to allow more of your spiritual truth to be embodied within it, if that makes sense, okay? And so for the next 7 days, I want you to pay attention to one reoccurring program, okay, or, reoccurring pattern, if that makes sense. Each time it appears, I want you to write down 3 things. What happened? Okay. What did you feel? What did your system immediately tell you to do? Do not try to change everything at once. Okay. Your first goal is recognition. And by the end of the week, you're going to look for the sentence beneath the reactions. I must keep everyone happy, right? Or I need permission before I trust myself, or I cannot rest until everything is finished, okay? Or it's safer to not be seen, whatever it is, right? And that sentence may be more revealing than the surface emotion. The way you just allow the words to come out without trying to edit your words will reveal the program, okay? And then you're going to ask yourself, is this program still true? Is this instruction still true? Who might I become if I no longer organize my energy around it? Okay, and what is one small experience I can give myself that supports a new instruction? And I want you to remember that a new energetic pattern is not created only through a repetition of words, okay? It is strengthened and reinforced when your system experiences evidence that another response is possible, okay? So if this teaching at all helped you recognize that your reoccurring pattern may involve more than a temporary chakra blockage. This is the deeper work that I'm now offering in my one-on-one Ten-Chakra Frequency Recode sessions, okay? I haven't worked with any clients one-on-one except for a small handful in about 1.5 years, 2 years. And so I am going to be taking a small handful of people to work with one-on-one. And basically the session begins with a complete clearing. Okay, we do a complete clearing of all 10 chakras. So we're not treating just one center in isolation. And then from there, we do up to 3 in chakras that I intuitively will select with my team and your spiritual team. And we're going to select those for deeper deprogramming based on the patterns that appear most active and ready to shift. There's also messages that will come through for everyone. Things that you need to do in your life or whatever. And so the process does conclude with a 9 chakra light code activation to support the greater alignment with your soul blueprint and the frequency seeking to emerge through you. You don't need to know which chakras need attention or anything like that. You don't need to arrive with the perfect intention or diagnose your own pattern. Okay. You just simply need to come with a willingness to clear what is complete and become curious about the deeper instruction your system may be ready to release. Okay. So if you feel a genuine resonance with that process, you can find the session details through the link below while they're still available. Like I said, just a small handful of people. And whether or not you choose to receive the session, I want you just to take that 5-question chakra instruction audit with you that we did together, because that's going to be a game changer. Okay. The next time a familiar pattern appears, just resist the urge to ask, what is wrong with me? I want you to reframe that and just ask, what is my energy trying to protect me from? Okay. What instruction or program is it following? And what truth am I now ready to teach it? So your chakras, they're not working against you. Okay. They may be simply just waiting for new information. Clear the energy, release the old instructions, the old programs, and create space for the signal of your soul to become clearer. Until next time, stay blessed, drink lots of water, get some sunlight, stay grounded.